Okay, good evening everybody, and welcome to the final stage of the Team 3R Race Series Tour of Sicily. Stage 10, and it's a hilly affair, as you can see from the profile. Although, to be fair, once you're up and past that big hill in the middle, you've a short climb and then it's mostly downhill to the finish. So it's going to be a fast stage. I think I did this in about an hour, taking it reasonably steady. So I'd expect the race to be about 45 minutes tonight, give or take. Hope everybody's looking forward to it. Seems like most of the regulars are here. 11 riders so far, and still a few more minutes for more to arrive. So let's see what happens. I haven't seen Steve Noble yet. I don't know whether he's here or not. And yeah, we've got Tim here, we've got Mike, we've got Kevin Unsworth. He'll be up at the front, no doubt. So yeah, all the main players are here, but I don't see Steve Noble. Yeah, thanks, Tim. It's been hard for me this last few weeks because the children being on holiday from school makes it very difficult for me to find as much free time as I'd like. And that's why I've not been doing a lot of cycling, to be honest. I've been absolutely exhausted. So I'm hoping to pick it up. We'll go on holiday tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And then I'm hoping to pick up the cycling after that. But there's some good news on the horizon. What I've done is I've scheduled all the Team 3R group rides for August and the first one in September. And I've actually repeated the full Tour of Sicily virtual rides. So anybody that missed one has got an opportunity to come along to the group rides, which happen on a Tuesday and Thursday nights, and take part. But I'll also throw the codes out there into the ether so that people can ride any of the routes when they want. But it will be nice to sort of get the team together on some of the group rides and repeat some of these routes, because I think you'll agree some of them were absolutely stunning. Good rides in their own right, never mind being part of a tour. So I'm looking forward to actually riding them, because I didn't get to ride the majority of these routes, obviously because I'm doing the commentary, and I can't commentate on the races and race at the same time. It's just too much effort. If it wasn't my series, then yes, I could probably get away with it. But the fact that it's my series, and I want to try and at least make a good effort to do decent commentary, then I really can't be jumping on the bike and racing at the same time. Now we have Will Stone with us tonight. It'll be interesting to see how he goes on the hills, because he's a strong rider. So this should be an interesting race. Now I've got to jump on the bike and turn the pedals, and then I'll resume commentary. Those that have been with me over the previous weeks know that I have to get on the bike every 30 minutes. Well, every 25 actually, to make sure that I'm not picked from the event. So there I go. You can see I'm pedaling, and I'll pull over to the side of the road, and now we'll pick up commentary. Now, there we go. Now this ride, as you can see, the climbing soon starts, and in fact, here we go. They're already onto the climb. So you can see that the group is going to stay together, I think, for a little while. But I don't think it'll be long before we're seeing gaps appearing once it starts to get a bit steeper. And you can see it's 4.3 at the moment, but it's going to change. And Gary's pushing off the front. Now, I think Gary's doing this purely and simply because you can see him working into the red, so he's above his FTP. So this is a hard effort from Gary, and what he's trying to do is get a bit of a march, because I think he'll agree with me. He knows he's going to go backwards when the climbs get really steep. So he's pushing on ahead now to try and negate some of the ground he's going to lose. Now, I'm not sure whether Maguire has been part of this tour before, so we'll keep an eye on him and see how he's going. I hope he's not a flyer. I hope he's not above the recommended watt kilos. We'll have to wait and see. You can see Evan, my teammate, is getting off the front as well. And Evan is a strong rider, so and a good climber. So I would expect Evan to make an effort. You can see he too is in the red. So I think he's a contender for the stage if he can get away. But that's what's going to determine tonight's stage. Who can get away? I think Tim will keep a close eye on him, as he usually does. Tim Cook, another 3R rider. So we've got 3 3R riders at the front. So good teamwork, guys. Well done. This is really nice to see. I'm starting to build a nice little team now in 3R. We recruited a couple of new members, and we might be contesting some of the autumn and winter race series as we go forward. Anyway, so that's the leaders out the front, but let's check and see what's happening. I'm surprised to see Will. I know Will is a slightly larger rider, but I am surprised he's fallen back so quickly. 50-meter gap. Now, he's a really strong rider, so perhaps he will close up that gap once we're over this first incline. We'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't expect him to be dropped at this stage, to be honest. And in fact, as I say that, he's closing up the gap, so maybe he's listening to me. And you can see he's working well above his threshold to get back. But Will's the kind of rider that will recover from this effort. He obviously can't burn too many matches, but he will recover from this effort. So, and you can clearly see I don't think Will is anywhere above the limit for this ride. You can see that he goes into the red pretty soon after crossing the free boundary, so he's well under the limit for the race. You've got Mr. Wilson. He's one of our regulars, and as I say, I'm really quite surprised to see Kevin. I know he's a bigger rider and he's a strong rider, but I am surprised to see him allowing the gap so early on. I would have thought he would have gone into the red and pushed a bit harder on this first hill. I could be doing him a disservice, but he doesn't want to let the front riders get too much of a gap, otherwise his known strength is not going to be able to pull them back. And I feel that, you know, if Kevin's anywhere near them when we crest that second big hill, I'll show you with the mouse here. If Kevin's anywhere near the group when we crest this hill, then he's got to be a contender for the win, because you can see the profile. It ideally suits a man of his capabilities. and Tim Cook. If Tim Cook is with the front group when they crest this hill, then him and Kevin, I think, are the main contenders for the win tonight. And I know I'm calling it early, but I think this route tonight lends itself to riders like Tim and Kevin Unsworth. But there could be a surprise in store. I mean, I'm calling it early, but you never know what's going to happen. I mean, Mike Wareham's capable of pushing on, but he'll agree with me. He's not going to contest the win unless he can be up near the front as we get through this middle section. And Alexander Purdon always seems content with, and I use that term loosely. Obviously, he would like to be further up the field, but I'm just so impressed with the fact that he carries on riding week after week. He's usually Lantern Rouge, but it's good experience for him. He's building fitness, there's no doubt about that, because his results are improving week on week. And I think if he continues to come along to the race series, which I'm going to put on, I think he'll only get better and eventually be up there amongst the other riders. But for the time, he seems quite happy just to be Lantern Rouge at the back of the pack. So we'll work his way back up. As I say, for me, the surprise at the moment is Kevin Unsworth. Will Stone is another bit of a surprise, but perhaps he's just keeping his powder dry because they're not that far off the front. Now, Tim is going to definitely keep an eye on Evan. He's not going to allow him too much of a gap. I need to find out about Maguire, just how strong he is. Because he's for me, at the moment he's an unknown. What I usually try and do is I try to Evan's heart rate monitor. It looks like he's wearing one, but it's not working. But Evan's a known, he's a known rider. There are no issues at all with the performances that Evan puts in, because he's consistently coming in under the watt kilos required. He's never a challenger to be over the limit. So at the moment, he's improving week upon week. So I don't think it'll be long before he does make the jump. But that's not going to happen at this time. And I'll happily include him in all the Team 3R 3.2 races in the near future. Tim Cook is another rider that's really strong week upon week, and in fact he's blown this series apart. I think he's won 2, he's finished second in 2. Now you drop out of the 10 races, you drop your worst 2 events, but I think Tim's worst is a 5th place. So he's shown full commitment to the series. I think he's raced every single one, which is amazing, and he's a deserved winner because he's really put in the effort when he's had to, and well deserved to be leading the pack at the moment. The sad thing is that we lost, and I mention this almost every week, but it's worth repeating. We lost another rider who was contesting with Tim at the top of the leaderboard, Paul Pudell from OTR Racing. And Paul graciously stepped down when his results started to go over the 3.2 watt kilo limit. And I think that's really, full credit to the team, OTR, and to Paul for doing that. But I was sad to lose him because it then gave Tim more or less carte blanche to to run away with the series. Sadly, the likes of Evan and Kevin were a little bit too far behind, even dropping 2 results. I say too far behind, only maybe 2 races, but Tim has kept it so that he's never finished, far from the podium, and that's made it almost impossible. And you can see, look, he's caught Evan now. So these two are going to ride and race together. I mean, Tim will always catch up on the flat or rolling terrain because that's where his strength lies. Now, on the hills, Evan has to try and drop him and get a big enough gap. There he is. He's waving to me. So Evan's got to try and drop Tim on the climb, and he knows that. And I think we'll see an effort by Evan on this next big climb. Not the short one coming up, but the really big one where it gets steep. And Tim may well suffer there because he's a slightly heavier rider. And by his own admission, he doesn't go as well on the really steeper climbs. Having said that, I mean, if you can call, coming in 4th on the really big mountain stages, not climbing well, I wish I could climb as well as he does. And I was a recognised climber, certainly in real life anyway. So this is interesting. These two are going to stay at the front, and you can see that both of them are working above FTP. There we go. They've just come back under to try and maintain the gap to Maguire and Will Stone. But I think they will maintain a gap for a little while now. It'll be interesting to see whether Tim drops back and he's caught by any of the riders behind. I think Evan will push on. So let's drop back and see what's happening behind. There's Maguire. And there's Gary, my 3rd teammate. So it's nice to see we've got in the top 5, we've got 3 Team 3R guys. And if we can finish with a full podium, wouldn't that be fantastic? So come on, Gary, see if you can catch Maguire in front of you and give us a podium. Now, for some reason, it looks like Will has pulled over. No power, no cadence. His heart rate is still up there, 155. So, yeah, he's obviously been putting in an effort. So why has he pulled over? We'll come back to him. We'll have a look and see what's happening. We've got Worthington. We've got Mike Wareham. Mr. Wilson, I think it's Martin Wilson. And then we've got Alex bringing up the rear. I'll keep an eye on the time and make sure I'm not caught out. In fact, I'm going to set an alarm. I'll just go back up the field and we'll take my hands away from the keyboard and set an alarm. So there we go. He's back. Good. I'm really, really happy to see Will. I would have hated for him to have been. He must have had a dropout or something. So he's dropped back. It's going to be tough now. But sometimes, having a dropout can actually, well, it can make you angry for one thing. It certainly does with me. But it can make you. It looks like he's got problems again. Yeah. Is this another dropout? Is he having dropout issues? What's going on? Because his heart rate is raised, so you can see that he's raising his effort to try and get back. This is so sad. I'll come back to you, Will. I hope you get going again. But what I was trying to say was that can really push you on. It can make you angry and really push you on to get going again. But it's hard. If you drop 200, 300, 400 meters, you're going to find it really hard to get back up the front. And it doesn't look like he's moving at the moment. And there comes a point where you say, oh, stuff it. That wasn't the word that first came to mind. But, you say, stuff it, enough's enough. I can't get back on. I'm not going to catch up. And you actually give in. But it looks like I'll go back to him in a minute. It looks like he's up and running again. You can see from the figures. I'm watching him now, actually, as I'm watching Kevin. There you go. He's going into the red, so he's determined. I'm going to go back to him in a minute. I just want to check what's... There we go. Now, I said this would happen on the steeper sections, that Evan would try and push ahead. Now, Tim will possibly close up the gap on this next green and orange section, but then Evan is likely to pull it out a little bit more once we get to the next climbing section. So that's an interesting battle. But for me, I want to see what's happening with him, with Will. Still in the red and closing on the man in front of him. Well done, Will. Top marks, sir. Because you have to realise, folks, it's got to be really hard when you're having dropouts and you're falling back, and you can lose as much as, 200-300 metres from a dropout like that to riders in front of you. You know that pulling that back that distance is going to be an uphill battle. An uphill not in the terrain, but uphill in terms of effort. You've really got to put in a strong effort, and Willie's doing so here, to get back on. I mean, he's second from last man on the road now, so we'll check up on him a bit later and see whether he manages to catch some of the riders in front. Mike's in the middle of nowhere at the moment, 80 metres ahead of Wilson and 80 metres behind Worthington. So those three could well change positions. I think they will. And Mr. Worthington is trying to close in on Kevin Unsworth, so we'll see whether he manages to peg the gap or whether he loses ground. It looks like at the moment he's losing ground, but that could change as we get into this next big hill. Kevin pushing a decent cadence. But he's not, I feel like, and you can see from his watt kilos, 2 watt kilos, he's not working hard here. So I don't think he's really, and I don't think he'll mind me saying that. Look at his heart rate. He's not really putting in an effort here. I think, if anything, he's probably saving himself. Because you can see Worthington is now catching him. So Kevin is sort of like, I don't think he's pushing on at the moment. Let's find out what's happening in front of him. Maguire, yeah, a solid third place at the moment, but that could easily change. Gary's just 130 metres behind him. So positions could swap over there. And then you've got Tim, how far in front? 120 metres in front. So Maguire could well catch up with Tim, but I don't know. I have a feeling Tim will just try and stay close to Evan. He will work above threshold when he needs to stop the gap going out. But Evan himself is actually pushing into above threshold efforts to try and maintain his gap and even extend it. And you can see that Tim realizes that, and when the gap gets to around 140 meters, Tim then realizes, okay, I got to just push that a little bit harder, and we'll often go into the red at the moment. And don't forget, riders will keep an eye on what the other rider's doing. So he can see what I'm seeing. Tim Cook can see Evan's effort and knows when he's going into threshold and knows when he has to raise his own pace. And vice versa. Evan can watch and see that Tim's falling back slightly. And so he can time his effort when to push on. Now, my tactic here would be to push on the steeper sections, which he's approaching now. So as the terrain gets steeper, that's the point where you really need to be pushing on, because that's where you get the biggest advantage over a heavier rider like Tim. But this first section of this climb doesn't really get mega steep. You can see that, I'll show you with the mouse, this section here does steepen quite significantly. So I think that's the section that will probably sort out these two. And we'll have to see how big the gap is. Oh, what's the problem here? I hope it's not a dropout. Evan pulling to the side of the road. He's back off again. Now, is that a dropout? Is RGT having server issues, or is it riders that are having issues? You just never know. As a commentator, all I can do is sit here and, and tell you what's happening. But in effect, I don't know whether it's a dropout from the rider's end or whether it's a problem with RGT. More often than not, to be fair, it's a problem with at the rider's end and not a problem with RGT. But you just don't know. Now, the section to watch is this section here. And by the time Evan gets to the top, he's going to need at least, I would say at least half a kilometre, if not more, lead on Tim to have any possibility at all of holding him off. It's got to be at least half a kilometre, 500 metres, because Tim will catch him on this next section if not. And that also depends on whether Evan has got the strength to push on, because he can't, this downhill section here, he certainly can't freewheel it if he wants to stay away. He's got to push into the red on the downhill sections, and that's how you maintain a break. I think Evan is the closest rival to Tim in the league, and perhaps he's on course here to take second place in the whole series, and I think Kevin is in place to take third. I could be wrong there, but I think that's the standings at the moment. I haven't got them with me. Okay, so let's have a look and see what's happening with Tim. You can see he's got quite a high heart rate, so he is putting in a big effort here. Even though, he's not pushing above his threshold, he's maintaining a good, strong effort. And you can see from his heart rate and from the power he's putting out that this is steady state. This is good effort climbing. Maguire has closed the gap like I expected him to do, because obviously Tim does slow down on the steeper sections, and I expect Maguire will probably catch him on this next section of the climb. Gary, I don't know what's going to happen here. By his own admission, Gary agrees that he's not in the same league climbing wise as the likes of Evan. Strength wise, I'm not so sure. Gary's a strong rider, so can he push on? Can he close the gap? We'll have to wait and see. But I think once we get over this hill, if he can stay in touch, if he can stay within touching distance of the three in front, then there's no reason why he can't close the gap. And the same goes for Will. Will is certainly not out of it, and Kevin. So my feeling is that these top 6 riders, I don't know about Worthington. I don't know whether he's got the capability to be able to close up to Kevin and then close up with the rest of them. We'll have to wait and see. I haven't seen too many of his results and in the races, so I don't. He's an unknown rider to me, really. But these top 6, I really believe that we can close up and that it could all come back together. It all depends on Evan, and whether he decides to push on once he crests this climb. And by push on, I mean he's really got to put the hammer down, go into the red on the downhills, which seems counterintuitive because most people, after doing a hard climb and working really hard on the climbs, ease off and relax once they get to the downhill section. But if Evan wants to maintain and even increase the gap, and he can increase the gap if the others are still on the climb, he can increase it significantly. Then that's what he's got to do. He's got to really push hard and push on. And he knows that. He doesn't. I'm not even sure if he's listening to me, but if he is, he'll know that better than me. Maguire has done as I thought he would, and that's overtaken Tim. But Tim will catch him. Tim's not going to let him go. He's not going to get a big enough gap, isn't Maguire, on Tim over the top, over what's left of this climb to leave him behind. And you can see Tim in the background actually proving my point. He's not going to let him go, and Tim's putting in big efforts to make sure he's not dropped. So yeah, that's going to come back together. The question is, can Gary close the gap? He's not far from the top of the climb, so yeah, I feel he can. And he'll certainly be motivated to do so, to try and close up the gap. Can Will catch Gary? At the moment, it's like he's pegging, slightly losing ground, but not too quickly, so we'll see what happens there. This is a surprise to me. I mean, I know Kevin struggles on the steeper climbs, but it's a surprise that he's in 6th place to me. Maybe he just does not like steep hills. And Mike's just a solid rider, always there. Doesn't like hills by his own admission, or not these kind of hills anyway. He likes the shorter ones, but these longer hills, no, it's not his forte. And the same with I think it's Martin Wilson. The same with Martin. I don't think he likes the hills either. And Alex, of course, he just takes his time and rides. I mean, solid rider. Just takes whatever's thrown at him and just continues on. Okay, so Evan's crested. And you can see he's got that gap I told you about. But Tim's now almost, let's have a look. Maguire's just gone over the top, and Tim is just going over the top himself. So the gap is 800 meters. Now, is that enough? I said it needed to be 500. And really now it's a case of, is Evan going to really put the hammer down, or is he just going to cruise? 2.1 power at the moment. So he's not really hammering it, but he's still putting out decent power. But I'll be honest, I'd be going into the red here. I really would, because you can see Tim's already closing the gap. I'd be going into the red. I'd really be pushing on here and hurting myself, because this is his only opportunity. If Tim Cook, and Tim is actually closing the gap on him, and will continue to do so. Tim's not going to let him go. I mean, if you look there at the difference in high watt kilos, there's not much at the moment, but then all of a sudden you'll see that Tim will push into the freeze, whereas Evan is not doing so. Look, Tim was 3.0 there, 2.8. And even Maguire is pushing into the freeze, whereas Evan isn't. He's just cruising. Oh, shit! Oh no! Ah! Oh! Okay. And I can't get back in. It doesn't allow me to get back in. I don't think anyway. No, doesn't allow me to get back in. Okay. Oh well, I've stuffed it. The last race of the series and I've stuffed it, folks. I'm so engrossed in my commentary, I have forgotten to get on the bike. I really, really am angry with myself. I just wish IGT would stop us having to do this. I mean, it's crazy that we put in all this effort to commentate on the events and we have to jump on the fucking bike every 30 minutes. And I forget to do so. And it's my fault. Yes, it's my fault. But having to do so is absolutely bloody stupid. Okay, that's the end of the stream, guys. I can't follow the race. I am just so angry.